Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about all of the upset alerts. There are a lot of them, and I didn't even include a Texas-Kentucky game that could get very sketchy for the Longhorns if they are not mentally prepared to go into Lexington at night. But let's go into get into my best bets. It hasn't been going well. I'll leave it at that for the time being. It has not been going well the last couple of weeks. I'm hunting a couple of pluses this week, and I feel pretty confident about them. But let's get into a quick favorite here. I'll take Cal minus 10.5 over UNC. I have a hard time believing that UNC team is fully bought in at this very moment. There is a lot of noise in the background of that program right now, and now they go all the way across the country after a bye week where I can't imagine you got a whole lot better considering what that team has been early on in the season. So I think this is one of those moments where they've given up or they've lost by at least 23 to every Power 4 team that they've played, and the quarterback of that team has done crazy, crazy things. If that's the case, give me Jerron Kiawe Sagapulotele to go crazy in this football game. I think he has a huge game. I think this is just a nightmare season for UNC. I don't think it's going to get a whole lot better. I think Cal nudges it in the right direction. Bill Belichick is probably out the door here pretty soon at UNC. The question is it during this week? Is it at the end of the season? I don't know. I think Cal does enough to at least make that a little bit bigger of a conversation going into next week. I think Cal wins this one by at least 14, maybe even more, and JKS continues to kind of assert himself as one of the best young quarterbacks in the country. LSU plus 2.5. Let's get into the underdogs. I love this LSU team, and it sounds crazy to say, and I totally understand that because when you've watched them, there's not a whole lot of reason to really love this team. I think everyone's going to be late. I think everyone's going to watch this Vanderbilt game this upcoming week, and I think they're going to watch LSU going forward, and they're going to say, man, I just missed this one by a little bit. I should have seen them against South Carolina run the ball more effectively than they had all year. Garrett Nussmeier look a little bit healthier despite the tough mistakes, look a little bit healthier, and play a little bit better football. That defense is still that defense. It's going to be nasty the entirety of the year. They're a swarming group that I think is going to be really tough for Vanderbilt to run the football on. I think this LSU team is right there. I think they're a couple moments, a couple of tweaks away from being an elite team, from being a team that can make the CFP. I think they show that this weekend. I think this offense gets a little bit more going. Can't promise that Garrett Nussmeier won't make a couple of mistakes because that's kind of the way he's been. But at the end of the day, I think LSU finds a way to win this one. I think they show everyone that they're a little bit better of a team than they've been the first couple of weeks. I think Garrett Nussmeier shows that he is still one of the elite players in college football. I like Georgia Tech plus 1.5 versus Duke. I think there's a lot of different reasons for Duke to be favored in this game. I think there's a lot of different reasons to pick Duke in this football game, especially with Georgia Tech being a little bit shaky on the road. I think the biggest thing to remember here is a lot of people, when they watch Haynes King, they think, what a good running quarterback. What a gritty guy that can make all the plays in the world with his legs. You're absolutely right. That's absolutely something he can do. He's spinning the pill. He's throwing the football all over the yard, playing really, really good football. Eric Rivers, Malik Rutherford, Luke Harpring, the tight end, has become a huge part of that offense. I think this team has the passing offense that not a lot of people realize. And I think Duke, despite being a good team, that defense has been a little bit off, especially in the passing unit. I think Georgia Tech finds a way to throw the ball in this game on the road. I think they win this one. I think one way or another, Georgia Tech finds a way to win. I think they understand how important this one is. I think Duke falls behind, and maybe Darian Mensa starts to force some footballs late. I think Georgia Tech wins this one on the road against Duke. I'll take Washington plus 6.5 against Michigan. I really like this one. And it's as simple as they have Jonah Coleman. If you got absolutely ripped by King Miller a week ago, I have no reason to believe Jonah Coleman's not going to come into your house and do the exact same thing. Obviously, you're at home. Obviously, you have a little bit more working in your direction this game. But at the end of the day, it's a really, really tough Washington team. They played a couple of tune-ups the last couple of weeks after that tough loss to Ohio State. They're playing really high-level football offensively. Damon Williams is an absolute nightmare if you don't get him on the ground, and Michigan's not getting quarterbacks on the ground very often, especially last week against Jade Mailava. I think there's going to be plenty of opening for this Washington offense in this game. I think Washington wins the game outright, but if you're going to give me the points, I'll take the point 6.5 here. I think Washington, at the very least, keeps this one close, and I really think they're going to win it. But at the end of the day, I love Jonah Coleman. I love Damon Williams. I think they find a way to put up enough offense in this game. I'll take Houston plus 1.5 against Arizona. Another underdog here. I'm sure all of this will work out in my favor, but Arizona has really struggled to slow down the run game. If you're going to let Willie Fritz do his run his offense against you, you're in trouble. Dean Connors and Connor Wegman have been very, very good in the run game this season. I think it's going to be really, really tough. If Arizona can't slow down the run, it's going to be a nightmare of an evening. Arizona's a solid team. There's no doubt about that. Just played an overtime game against BYU, gave up a ton on the ground to LJ Martin in that football game. I think Houston's kind of finding their confidence. After that Texas Tech loss kind of got knocked down a little bit, I think this is a game where they win and at least assert themselves as that second tier of the Big Ten at the very least. Mississippi State plus 9.5 versus Florida. Just one that I feel. I think we talked about it plenty in the first segment. I think the reality is I can't look at Gainesville and feel confident right now. I think everyone understands what's going to happen on Sunday regardless of the result here. I think those players understand that, and I think it's going to be really hard for them to show up time and again in this football game. And I think the reality of the Mississippi State offense is you can be up 10 points. They can make it, you're down 4 points very, very quickly if you're not careful. I think they're going to be able to make a couple of plays. If I was Mississippi State and Jeff Lebby, I'd take the ball first. I'd want the ball immediately. I'd try to go down and score because I think that team would, I don't want to say quit. I think that team would have a tough time coming back in that football game. With all the stuff swirling around that program, I think it'd be really, really tough for them to get off the mat a couple of times in this game. I think if Mississippi State starts on the front foot, I think it's going to be really, really tough for Florida to find a way back in it. Again, I'm going to pick Mississippi State to outright win it. I think Florida doesn't really have a way to fully blow out this football team. I think they're going to be at least in this game very late. I'll take Mississippi State plus 9.5, but I kind of like Mississippi State money line. I'll take Oregon minus 17.5 versus Oregon. Don't really have a lot of stats here. I'll be totally honest with you. I'm just going to pick a pissed off Dan Lanning. If he's pissed off, I don't care where he is in the country. He could be going to Timbuktu this weekend and playing a football game. I'd pick him by at least 20 points. I think this guy is very, very aggressive. The other reality is Washington was able to win this game by 19 over Rutgers last Friday night, and Damon Williams had an afternoon. They were not able to get after that kid at all. If that's the case, Dante Moore is going to play really good football. The reality of last game against Indiana is they got after him really quickly, and he was just not himself for most of that football game. I think he understands after watching that tape that he probably left a couple on the table. There's no doubt about that, and I think you go into this Rutgers games kind of hunting a big play, hunting a couple of big ones, and continuing to kind of flex your muscles just a little bit. I think Oregon's a really good football team. I think they're going to be more than fine. I think you got to prove that to some people this week, and you obviously won't do it aggressively against the Rutgers, but at the very least, you can show you're still the class, or you're among the class in the Big Ten is probably the way I should put that. I think they'd find a way to win this one. I think it's a really, really tough game for Rutgers to win, especially with a pissed off Oregon on the other side. And then I'll take Missouri-Auburn under 43.5. This is the only over-under that I have on this, so we'll hope this one goes well. I just don't think Missouri's going to be able to run the football against Auburn with Keldrick Falk and all the nightmare players they have on that defensive line. I don't think Auburn's going to be able to score any points. If I'm being totally honest, with Zion Young, Damon Wilson going after Jackson Arnold, I think it's going to be really tough for either of these offenses to get off the ground. I think it's an ugly game. I'm going to pick 20-14, something like that, 21-14. I think I picked 21-17 earlier in the show, so there you go. At the end of the day, I do think it's going to be one of those defensive battles. I think we could go into halftime kind of like the Georgia-Auburn game where it's 10-3 or it's 6-3, something ugly like that. And then one team finds a way to open it up, make a couple of big plays on the ground. But at the end of the day, don't love either of these offenses a ton. Really like both of these defenses. So I think Missouri finds a way to win it, but I don't think either offense looks all that inspiring in this football game. But it's a really fun weekend we got on deck. I think it's one of those weekends where you have a lot of teams that got to prove something to me. You know, USC, prove that you, last week wasn't a joke. Notre Dame, prove that you are back to being the elite team that you were capable of being. For Utah and BYU, just prove that you're the next team up after Texas Tech. I think that's about as best as anyone can do in the Big 12 right now. For LSU, prove that you're for real. Prove that you can actually find a way to win big-time football games. For Vanderbilt, kind of the exact same thing in a lot of respects. For Ole Miss and Georgia, they got to find a way to win this one. I think Ole Miss is in a position where you could lose it and still find a way to the CFP. I'd be worried about that team moving forward if they fell in this game, and I think they will fall in this game. And then the third Saturday in October is always a special one. We got upset alerts all over the place. I think it's going to get weird, and I think every week is going to get weird the rest of the way. I think we have a couple of firings to talk about the next time that we meet, whether it's in Gainesville or it's in Auburn or it's somewhere else. I think there's a couple more that possibly could be, but at the end of the day, it's going to be one of those weekends. I think we can pretty much bank on that happening just about every weekend, but when you have rivalries like this one, a lot of things can happen very quickly. Maybe Penn State has zeroed in on someone by Sunday. A lot of stuff that will have happened. Apologies for not being able to get to the Sundays the last couple of weeks. I can promise we will find a way to get to it this week. We'll find a way to give you at least a little bit of a recap on Sunday night, and we'll have a very, very fun weekend ahead of us. So enjoy it all. Watch Miami, watch Nebraska tomorrow, and we'll see what happens on Saturday, because I can promise you it's going to get a little bit weird. But enjoy it all. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. It means the absolute world to me. And we'll see you on Sunday to break down what I have to assume is going to be a very chaotic slate of football. But thank you so much for listening, and I will see you guys on Sunday.